Hello, and thank you for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I'm your host, Dr. Angela Chester. We would like to enlighten, inspire, and empower you to become your best self. The tongue is a small thing that makes grand speeches, but a tiny spark can set a great forest on fire. And that's what we want to do today, fire you up. So we have a special guest today, Derek-tye. He is with the-tye-group as well as Date Crawl, and you can find those both online by going to the .com version of them. He is based out of Cincinnati, Ohio. So today we'll be taking a practical look at faith in business. So how do we live out our faith while still building and growing our business, and in some instances, our businesses? And that's what we're going to talk to Derek about today. After graduating from Northern Kentucky University, he has pursued an experience and growth in the corporate world through his positions at Hasbro, Cincinnati Bell, and the U.S. Bank. After determining that he was destined for being an entrepreneur, he entered into the real estate business. His team has sold about 1,000 homes over the past 13 years. He continues to serve buyers and sellers in the greater Cincinnati area. The Tye Group currently has 18 members and is still growing. His wife and he started several companies together over the years, including a pet sitting business, a horse business, a patent-pending toy concept, a real estate company, and after 11 years of success in the real estate business, he decided to form their latest venture, HDHK, in 2015. Their first relationship, as far as growth as apps are concerned, is picking up national press, and it is gaining momentum in 52 countries. Yes, that's right. It has been downloaded in 52 different companies. He also, other than how did he know the HDHK, he also has invented an app called Date Crawl. Date Crawl. And, of course, you can get that in your app store as well, or visit datecrawl.com. His passion in business is leading people and creating new businesses and opportunities for people to work together and to follow their passion. So without much further ado, let's bring Derek on. Hello, Derek. How are you? Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, what an honor. I'm just so happy to be on the call here today and the radio. It's just an amazing opportunity for me to share my faith with you.
Yes, I love it. Now, many times people get a little confused about who they are or how they're supposed to live out their faith. So I'm going to ask you a question that's a little bit different, because I usually ask folks to tell me about themselves and who you are. But I'm going to ask you to start, since I know that you are an entrepreneur. What is your take on this? Would you say that you are a Christian who happens to be an entrepreneur, or would you say that you're an entrepreneur who happens to be a Christian? Or are they kind of one and the same to you?
Well, that's a great question. I think, the Word of God tells us that we should have our identity in Christ. So if I have to take my first and foremost identification, since all of this stuff's going to pass away here in this world, we're all, pretty much everything we see around us isn't going to be here someday. So whether that's my businesses that I've made, or the house that I built, or, the physical structures that we've helped sell and buy through the years, that's all going to, pass away. So definitely my identity in Christ as being a Christian is number one. But definitely I know God has given me this passion for business development, for relationships, for building teams, and for new product ideas. And I really believe that inspiration that I have, that down in my gut feeling that I know that I'm doing the right thing for people and for business ideas, it's hard to describe it. When you have it in your bones, you just can't get it out. That's kind of where I'm at now. So I have that identity as an entrepreneur that just, rises up there as well, but definitely being a Christian is number one.
Hmm. And I think most people who are entrepreneurs, we understand that the same way that you just can't deny that you need to eat or you need to breathe or you have a desire to go to sleep. You have this just deep down desire to be an entrepreneur, and you know that that is just a part of your purpose or a part of your calling. Just to live your life here on earth at this particular time, it's just who you are. With that being said, I want to ask you, how did you get started in real estate? It sounds like you are very successful with that. And how did you decide that, yeah, I think I want to do this?
Well, it's a great question. So my wife and I got married really young. So I was 20 and she was 18. And my mom and dad decided to sell their house while we were engaged. And I didn't want to lose the family home. I had grown up there.
Mm.
And I thought, hey, Mom, is there any way that you could sell it to me? Well, I was a junior in college. My wife was still in high school, literally as a senior in high school, and we were always crazy. Like, we started dating a couple of years before that, and we always just knew we were going to be together. We just had this great relationship, and so I basically, long story short, talked my mom and dad into selling me the house and gifting me some equity so that I could use that as a down payment, and we were homeowners and got married within about 4 months. So at 20 years old and 18, we got married, had our first home. I was a junior in college doing all my exams, planned a wedding. You talk about, that was my first experience as being kind of like a multitasker, right? Which you learn. So we love the idea of owning our own place. So I never rented anything. We never went to an apartment. And so I love the idea of home ownership. We, a few years later, decided to build our own home. And we took the property that we had, and we actually found out that we couldn't sell it for what we wanted to sell it for after we had made some improvements. So I did some research, and this is at 22 years old. I did some research that I could divide the land into 2 parcels and keep the house on one side, and then the empty lot that we always used as like a playground for us as kids growing up. I found out there was enough room to build another house there, so I contacted the county and made a bunch of arrangements with them, a surveyor, the bank, and actually completely had it divided, had a partial lien release done, and then put it back on the house back on the market and sold it. And then I contacted every builder in the Yellow Pages, just literally cold calling them at 22 years old and no real estate experience. I found a builder to buy the lot for $17,000, and I sold the house for a little less than what we had originally been asking for it, but it ended up being about $5,000 more than what we were even asking for it originally. So that was my first real estate deal, and I was like, hey, I really like this. But I'm a slow learner, so it took me a couple more deals before I figured out that I should do it professionally. So we bought a house and then sold it with another real estate agent. And so I did like 3 deals with other agents, and I said, you know what, I really like what they do. I think it's a neat business, but I didn't really understand it. And so I did a little research. My wife ended up getting her real estate education and license and said, Derek, you should do this too. But she didn't start because our first baby was actually born a little bit premature, just about a few weeks, but just enough to mess up the exam dates and everything.
Right.
So I decided, you know what, I think I want to give this a shot. So within about 6 months, we actually had a full-time business going as the-tye-group, and we sold a few houses that first year, just enough to get our, that first 6 months, just to kind of get our business started. But we realized that it was something we loved to do. The big niche for us, though, was that we realized nobody was using the Internet. This is back in 2004, so 13 years ago. There weren't any companies really utilizing the Internet at a high level. So we were able to integrate in the Internet into a prospecting system that nobody else was using in Cincinnati at the time. And that enabled us to get a ton of leads, which created a surplus. And then we were able to form a team, which nobody was doing teams back in 2004, or very few real estate agents were doing that. So we really got excited about this idea that, hey, we can be our own boss, we can be entrepreneurs, and we have enough business coming in that we could actually create buyers and sellers agents that can do some of the business than like the hours that we didn't really want to work, which was usually the evenings and weekends. And that's kind of how our team got started.
Wow, that is such an amazing story and so encouraging, because I know there's someone out there going, man, I really want to do this real estate thing, but I'm trying to do this and do this and do the other. And that is so encouraging. Like you said, you were in your 20s and it happened for you. And you just kind of
Yeah.
just kept moving forward. I love that. I'm always looking for ways to encourage the next generation. I am not the type of person that believes in saying that I can't. It's always, how can what do I need to understand? What can I do differently? Is there a different angle that I need to pursue in order to make this come into fruition? As long as you believe that it's something that God has purposed you to do, then you definitely need to believe in yourself and be able to go out there and do it. I think that is just so awesome. Now,
Yeah, there's a lot of
go ahead.
there's a lot of traditional ways that agents have gotten business over the years, and it's kind of fun because I was one of the younger people in the office. So I was at a very traditional real estate company, and everyone said, okay, you pull out this big book, basically like a phone book, and you just start calling everybody in the phone book, hey, do you know anyone that wants to buy or sell a home? And I thought, gosh, there's got to be a better way. And since I had come from Cincinnati Bell and Hasbro Toys and some marketing experience I had gained and through my corporate experience, I realized that the internet was really where the leverage was, and being able to create a customized website and a portal that people could view homes, and then when they were ready to look, we were there for them. I kind of look at it as like the Sunday car sales kind of mentality. If you want to go look at cars and you're not sure you want to like have a salesperson like hounding you, you go on a Sunday, right? You browse the car lots, you walk around, you look in all the windows, and you're like, I think I do like that car, whatever brand you're looking at, but then when you're ready, you want to test drive it, there's no one there because they're closed. It's Sunday. You wanted the privacy, but now you want to get into the car. So that's kind of how we set up our websites. We wanted to be there for them when they're ready. Like we didn't want to be hounding them or, hey, are you ready? Are you ready? We just wanted to be available. As soon as they said, hey, I'm ready to go see a house, we wanted to have an agent ready within about 20 minutes that would answer the phone and then make an arrangement to show them a house. And that was a little different than what the traditional models were all about at the time.
That is so smart. That is so incredible. Because that's one thing I think that everyone across the board, regardless of your age, your gender, your ethnicity, you like salespeople, but it's kind of a love-hate relationship. You don't want to be bothered. You don't want to be hounded. You want to shop or look, in your own time, in your own way. And if you have questions or when you're ready, you want to go and be able to, kind of raise your hand and say, yeah, okay, come over here and assist me. How smart is that? Well, I know that some people are not very familiar with the process of purchasing a home or the differences between back then and back now. So, and I know we only have a few minutes before we go to break, but how long did it take before to purchase a home? Like, is it a process that took 10 days, 20 days, or how were you able to kind of shorten that time?
Well, it's interesting. So, very kind of looking back 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years, it's been a lot of people either paid cash, and those closings can take like 10 days. The whole process might be, hey, my neighbor's house went for sale. I go offer amount of money. I go borrow it from my mom or dad. That's kind of how it used to work, or grandma or grandpa. Or I went down to the bank and they wrote me a loan on one piece of paper, and then I closed on the house in 10 days, and then I gave those people 30 days to move out. The process is completely different now. So when you get the governments involved with the mortgages, the mortgage insurance, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, all the mortgage terms out there, between looking for the home, making an offer, doing home inspections, appraisals, all the due diligence, it can be 60 days now, for the process. So you got to be willing not only to find a good agent or somebody to work with, but you got to have somebody that's willing to stick out that process and be there as a consultant and help be part owner in this process with you. If you have someone that just is a good salesperson up front and makes that relationship with you, but then kind of checks out and doesn't follow up on all these steps, like you said, there is a process that you have to go through now that you may not have had to go through as much years and years ago. So that is a big key differentiator amongst people that want to get into the business, kind of sticking through that whole relationship, the whole time cycle.
Right. Well, listeners, don't worry. We are going to take a very short break, but when we come back, we're going to talk more with Derek-tye about being an entrepreneur and how we can create this sense of balance, but also be practical about our faith as an entrepreneur. We'll be back right after this. Hello, and thank you for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I'm your host, Dr. Angela Chester. Today we are talking to Derek-tye of the-tye-group as well as datecrawl.com, and we are talking about practical faith in business. How do you live out your faith while still building and growing your business? I know that many of you are entrepreneurs, and you want to know, how do I get started? How do I keep a sense of balance? And that's what we're talking about today. Now, Derek, I know that we just finished talking about the real estate portion of what you do, and I want to shift gears just a little bit and talk about the apps that you have. Now, I know I'm familiar with How Did He Know? That is a wonderful app. Please go to your app store, folks, and check that out. But you also have a new app called Datecrawl. How did you get involved in the app world?
So basically, about 2.5 years ago, my wife and I have been in business together for 13 years with real estate and some other adventures we've made into the entrepreneurial world. But she had this great idea for an app and said, hey, honey, we should build this thing. And I said, well, we don't have an app company. We don't know anyone who makes apps. We don't have the money really to finance an app. So where do you want to start? So I literally put a message out on LinkedIn, and I have about 1,500 contacts on there because of our real estate business and being the president of the Chamber of Commerce and the president of our local board of realtors. I've got a great network, which is amazing. Thank God for that. But I had one of my past clients respond and say, hey, I'd like to help build an app with you. That sounds like a fun thing. Well, he had just gone through a job transition and was looking for some work. So we partnered up together. We grabbed a few other programmers, and we started basically the kind of technical wireframe of how do you build an app, what do we need to do. And he had already done some work with the Girl Scouts and some other organizations to build apps for them. So we started a brand new company, and that How Did He Know app has been helping, like you said in the intro. We've got it downloaded now in 52 countries. We've got about 2,000 guys worldwide that are getting daily advice on how to best be a better partner and husband to their wives by really paying attention to their needs emotionally and physically.
Mm-hmm. And that is so important. I know it's a very simple thing, but it's amazing how the simplest things are the things that tend to get overlooked. Just I think because they are so simple, we think, oh, it must be more complicated than that, or we have to do something grander than just that in order to get or keep someone's attention. And the app is just really wonderful. It gives you that simple little thing that you can do, and it's like, oh yeah, it's like the best little wingman out there. Hey, did you remember to do this? Did you remember to don't forget that? And I think that really is a wonderful way to keep people encouraged and keep their relationships on the positive side.
Oh, definitely, yes. And then the Datecrawl app is kind of an extension. So we found that as a business owner, we're not making any money off of this app, to be real frank with you. Like, we built this amazing tool for guys, and if it's like a ministry, if it's a nonprofit thing, and it's just that way forever, and if that's what God wanted us to do with it, I'm dedicating it to Him and His kingdom. So however He wants to use that tool, I'm happy for it. So we've never made any money off of it because our monetization plan never really kind of panned out the way we wanted, but we still are paying every month to host it. We're still promoting it on PR opportunities. We don't market it. We don't spend a lot of money on marketing, but we've had all that growth that you've heard is with no marketing dollars. It's all word of mouth. But we thought, hey, we got this great team together now. We know how to build apps. What if we built another app that was more focused on something we can actually make money off of, because I am an entrepreneur. And so the Datecrawl app came out as my wife and I, when we go out to dinner, we have 5 kids. We've been married for 20 years. And when we go out for dinner, we don't just want to go tag the restaurant, have our dinner, and then leave and come right back home again. we kind of like to escape and stay away a little bit, It's like an escape. To be real frank with you, and our kids are from 5 to 15 years old, and it's like, you know what, let's stay out for a few hours. So we just started doing these crawls where you've heard of a bar crawl. Well, this is more what we call it a date crawl. We'd go out to dinner, and then maybe we'd go out to a show or a comedy club or dancing, and then we'd wrap it up at the end of the night with maybe an ice cream, a dessert somewhere. So around Cincinnati, Ohio, and every other city I've been to, there's all these cool places, and you can go on Yelp or TripAdvisor, but they only give you one destination. You could say, what's the best restaurant in Atlanta, and it might tell you, here's the top-rated restaurants. Then you have to go, okay, what am I supposed to do tonight for fun? You might go to TripAdvisor and look up top destinations for things to do. And then you have to go back to Yelp or maybe some other website and say, what's the best place to get an ice cream cone tonight? Well, guess what? They might be in 3 different parts of town. They might be in 3 different kind of dress levels. You might be casual in one and active in another. So what we did, we started doing some research and found out there was no app in the entire world that literally bundled together these date nights as package deals. So we made it user-generated. So it's a social media platform. So you go on there and you can submit. If you're a restaurant owner, like listening to this, you're like, hey, I want to be on there. Well, guess what? It's free. I'm not the best business owner. You can hear that. But so it's a free app. So you can go on there as a business. So let's say you own a restaurant. You can build a date crawl around your restaurant. You might say, okay, come to my restaurant first for dinner, and then go across the street to go dancing, and then go across the street from there to have an ice cream at this famous ice cream place. Or maybe it's an all-night donut shop. So what it does is it creates a whole night. And what's so neat about it is it's very user-friendly. So if you're a user and you just want to go out on one of these dates, you can put in your search criteria. As long as someone in your city has submitted a date night, it'll bring up ideas. The thing is, we started as a test market in February, right around Valentine's Day. 3 network affiliate news stations picked it up as an awesome Valentine's Day planning tool. Yeah, so thank you, Lord. So our ABC affiliate, our CBS affiliate, and our Fox affiliate all picked it up as live news stories on the day before Valentine's Day, interviewed my wife and I on live TV on prime time. So we got the most unbelievable media coverage. Obviously, that's a God thing, right? Like we couldn't have ever paid for that.
Exactly. You can't pay for that.
So this is us living our faith in our business. Like God, like you just opened these doors. So we know it's a blessing from God. So we built this amazing app. It took us a little over a year for Date Crawl to come out. We launched it in February. We've got over 1,000 people within 2.5 months that had already downloaded it. And now we're looking to expand it nationally. So it's ready right now today in any city, including Atlanta. You can download the app. Now you guys don't have any date night ideas yet because no one submitted them. But it's basically like Facebook. If you went on Facebook and you went to your news feed and you didn't have any friends, what would show up? Nothing. So if you don't have if you don't have any dates put in the area yet, then nothing will show up yet. So that's where it's a two-way street. You need people to submit the dates, and you need people to go on the dates. So that's kind of our next big hurdle as a company is to promote the app and to get it out there. But guess what? That takes money. So unless you have a big PR voice in the world, it's hard to get that out there.
And for those of you guys that like to be first in things, be one of the first few people to, crawl Atlanta and put in and say, hey, I've been here. These are some things that I've done. And then you could see how that changes the lives of other people, especially for folks that are a little challenged when it comes to planning things. The person who's not a planner is so going to appreciate the people who are the planners, who take the time to put it in. I know that I'm a Yelper. I review the places that I go. I take a moment to put it on Yelp. I'll do a Google review because I know that, like, my husband is not the planner type. But I can always say, well, honey, go check it out on Yelp and see, how many stars does it have, or do you agree with what they say or disagree, and kind of give you an idea there. So there's a way that I know there's someone listening going, I'm going to do that. Please do, because we can all help each other, especially when it comes to dates. Who wants to have a horrible date? Suggest some places, and I'm glad I'm not in that dating world anymore. But even when you're married, you still want to have a good time. And I understand about not wanting to be around your kids. Thank God my children are a little bit older, but
Yeah.
I do remember those times where you want dinner to last a few hours as opposed to just, like you said, a kind of a drive-by date. You don't want those anymore. You want some more time there. So as an entrepreneur, what are some things that you really feel kind of committed to, or how do you describe your passion as an entrepreneur to someone else who's trying to understand or figure out if they want to be an entrepreneur?
Well, I think there's two big keys to that. One is I always look for gaps. So I think, if you think about there's gaps in everything. So, for example, have you ever sat around and someone said, well, they should have a business that does this, or they should have an item on the menu that does that, or, there should be a real estate agent that knows this part of town. There's always gaps. So as an entrepreneur, I'm always looking to fill gaps. So if there's a new opportunity out there that's not being leveraged, literally my wife and I brainstorm new business ideas every week. We just can't help it. So we just see things that need to be done, and we're like, you know what? It looks like we need to invent another app to solve this problem or solve that problem. And, it's not a money motivation. I think a lot of people look at entrepreneurs as greedy. I think if you're truly a contribution-focused entrepreneur, and that's the other piece, is you have to be coming from contribution. If you're always looking to get rich, or you're always looking for how am I going to make $1 million, your focus is in the wrong place. If you're truly, now I may never be a millionaire. I may never have $1 billion. I may never have 10 houses, and I don't know. That's not my focus. My focus is how can I be at such a high level of contribution to people around me that my life is rich. Like my birthday was recent, and I had this epiphany. I was like, you know what? On one hand, I feel like the richest guy in the world, and I don't say that to brag. I just have this beautiful family. I have my beautiful wife that I love dearly. I have this relationship with God that I feel so enriched by. I have my church friends. I have people on my small group I get to hang out with. I have someone on the other end of the phone that I could call at any moment. I've got several people that would take my call if I'm in a crisis situation and come over right away and help me out. To me, that is rich. Like I have a rich life, and I think we kind of underplay that in our lives. Oh, I'm poor, I don't have this, I don't have this. But if we focus on what we do have and the things that really matter, that's kind of how I look at entrepreneurship, is how can I be such a high level of contribution to someone else, whether I'm selling them a home, helping them buy a home, whether it's building an app to fill a need, whether it's answering the age-old question, what are we going to do tonight? If I can come alongside those people at a really excellent level, because Jesus didn't do anything halfway. He did everything excellent. And if we can have that spirit of excellence, looking for ways to contribute to people, and then ultimately at the end of the day have our perspective right, where we know that our affirmation doesn't come from people, it comes from God, I don't think anyone can stop us. Because then what are you measured against? You're measured against God and His good graces and His will and His grace in our life. He's the ultimate sacrifice for us. And he was an entrepreneur, right? He grew up as a carpenter. From the age 15 to 30, they say he was running his father's shop. So for 15 years, you would go into his shop and you would probably order a door or ask him to build a home for you, or maybe do some construction on a wall that you were trying to build. He was an entrepreneur day to day, in and out, every day. How do you think Jesus actually treated people? Do you think he built that wall to a really high standard? Did he build that house to a really high standard? I can imagine those homes are probably still standing today if he had anything to do with it, right?
And I am so glad that you mentioned that, because so many times we get this misunderstanding or this misconception, or we simply just don't know the facts of the matter. And we have to do things with the right intention, from the right place in our hearts, and we cannot be constantly driven by the almighty dollar. Sure, we need it to pay for things and to survive and all of that, but boy, are we blessed when we have so many of the other things that don't have a monetary value on it. I'm very big on family, and when you say, my wife and my 5 kids, that just brings a smile to my face. And it's like, yes, someone else who sees the value and the importance of just loving on family and having God first and having family, and then taking care of business in every sense of the way with that. That is absolutely awesome. I love it. I just absolutely love it. Well, listeners, don't go anywhere. We need to take a short break, but when we get back, we are going to continue to talk with Mr. Derek-tye of the-tye-group.com as well as datecrawl.com. We'll be back right after this. Hello, and thank you for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I'm your host, Dr. Angela Chester. Today we are speaking with Derek-tye of the-tye-group.com and datecrawl.com. So we're talking practical faith in business and how to live out our faith while still building our businesses and growing successful businesses as well. Now, Derek, what are three things? Because I know we have to we have to be committed to having a sense of balance in everything that we do. We can have really great families, and we want to have really great businesses. But if you can share about 2, 3, 4 things that you do in your daily life that have just absolutely contributed to you having a really good life. Be it that it's your best life, a better life, but what are 2 or 3 things that you do?
So we talked earlier about me with my birthday saying that I felt like the richest guy in town, and I can say definitely that's not a monetary wealth statement. That's definitely, riches in God's glory and His presence and the people around me and relationships, and my wife and I just have this awesome relationship, which we just want to spend time together. But I would say if I had to come down with 3 life principles that are guiding me every day to feel like I'm having a rich life, I would say 3 P. We'll say 3 Ps. How's that? The first one's going to be prayer. So that's I literally every day I feel like in the scriptures it says be constantly in prayer. I mean, I'm in the car praying. I'm listening to podcasts praying. I am, and before I get up in the morning and I'm laying in bed, I try to pray. And then I'm always just visualizing Jesus. I'm visualizing His perfect works that He's done for us and how we don't have to do anything. We don't have to labor hard. And I have this expression I say all the time. I don't know if I heard it from somewhere or if or God just put it in my brain, but our best is not as good as God's rest. So if we can rest in God and what He's going to do for our lives, whatever the best efforts we're ever going to make in this world, whether it's making widgets, whether it's building a business, whether that's working for somebody, whatever that effort that we think is we got to stack up and do, God's resting in Him is number 1, first and foremost. So I would say prayer, definitely number 1, constantly being in prayer. Even in going into a business meeting, going into a listing appointment, going into a team meeting where I'm about to lead my team, or even while the team meeting's going on, I'm asking the Holy Spirit to guide my words and what am I supposed to say next? And just you get those little checks in your spirit, if you're constantly in that mode of talking to the Father and just, hey, He's there for us, He's going to give you the right words to say. And sometimes I'll say something and I'll be like, where did that come from? It wasn't me. I couldn't articulate that statement that well. Or even being on this interview, I just dedicate the interview to God and say, God, use my voice, use the words coming out of my mouth. And even if I think I'm saying ABC and it comes out 1, 2, 3, if that's what God wanted it to be, that's awesome. So number 1 is prayer. Number 2 is purpose. You got to live on purpose. And that means as an entrepreneur, it's easy to hide from your family. It's easy to hide from your wife. And what I mean is you get so buried in the work that needs to be done and staying late and coming in early and working on projects at night that, the kids are, needing your attention and, missing games and all these things that entrepreneurs do. If you live on purpose, okay, what is my number 1 priority? I'm part of a franchise system called Keller Williams, and their mission statement is God first, then your family, and then your business. That's the order that's on the wall in our company. And the Tye Group team follows the same principle. So if I know my purpose is God first, then my family, then my business, that means the business has to take 3rd place. And I even tell my clients that. I say, listen, you want to meet me at, let's say, 7:30 p.m. on a Thursday. Well, you know what? I'm going to be having dinner with my family at that time. I really appreciate the opportunity to be working with you, but I just have to make the choice to being with my family during that time. Is there any way we could reschedule for a 9 to 5 Monday through Friday time? And I usually will ask 3 times for an appointment that's alternate to when they want me to be there, or I'll just see if someone else on my team will handle the business for me. Because if it's someone that can only be available during the times when I'm dedicating to my family, and putting them first, or church on Sunday morning, then I just have to turn away the business and just expect that God's going to give me a deal somewhere else. I can't have every deal. So there's prayer, purpose, and the third one is a really odd one. You ready for this one? Podcasts. I love my podcasts. And here's why I think. So when I travel a lot in my job back and forth, it's all local travel. I'm literally in the car sometimes 2 hours a day just driving back and forth to appointments. I have Christian podcasts playing. And I listen to like Believer's Voice of Victory. I listen to the Church for Entrepreneurs, Amos Johnson Jr. He's actually out of Atlanta. So there's a shout out to Amos Johnson. But there's all these. I listen to these guys constantly, and it feeds my spirit, knowing that I'm constantly listening to the Word of God every day. And you wouldn't believe all the business insight. I used to listen to secular podcasts a lot, like Tim Ferriss and some of these guys. There's nothing wrong with these guys, but it's a very secular perspective on business. And when I started doing more research on the Bible, it says seek wise counsel, and then also have someone that has the same heart for God that you do. And I thought to myself, these guys may not have the same fundamental worldviews that I do, and I'm listening to them for my primary business advice. And I found that there's a lot of great Christian entrepreneurs out there that are really believing in this marketplace ministry. So I'd say that third P is just listening to these spirit-filled podcasts all the time. And my kids think I'm nuts. They're like, Dad, you're obsessed with these. They're in the car all the time. And you listen to these things. And I'm like, guys, this is what helps me to really tune. I can't read the Bible while I'm in the car. So I have the second best thing is letting a prophet or a man or woman of God tell me what they're hearing from God. And there's what they call a rhema word, which is when God sends out a word to somebody. I listen to preachers in Australia through Hillsong. I listen to a preacher in Singapore, Joseph Prince. I listen to a guy in Dallas, Texas. I listen to a guy in Oregon. I mean, I listen to people in North Carolina. And guess what? The messages sometimes from all these different pastors sound similar in the same week, and you know that's God.
Yes, and if you, man, I tell you, I've mentioned it so many times. I say, you know, when you're praying about a situation and you're asking God to give you direction and to answer a prayer, and you hear, like you said, these different people that you know couldn't possibly have heard your question or known that this is what you're talking about, but yet they're giving you the confirmation that you know that this must be God. It is absolutely wonderful when we're just able to open our eyes and open our ears and really listen and see that the answer is there. And you're so correct. Pastor Prince is an awesome teacher. I love his perspective on how he explains things, that he really gives you the word the way it is. It's not mixed. It's not diluted. It is just 100% just out there, and it really is a fresh perspective. Again, like you said, not that we're knocking anybody else, but it's just a wonderful perspective to know that someone really does have a true heart for sharing ministry. Well,
that's right.
When you were talking about deciding whether or not to take on a client or to take on a call and determining your time frame. What popped into my head was the example of Chick-fil-A. You know, he said, I'm closed on Sunday. God told me to rest on the Sabbath. And I know some people are going to say Sabbath is Sunday, some are going to say it's Saturday, but with the concept of rest on the Sabbath. And, you know, I take my hat off to him, because no matter what anyone said, he said, this is what I am going to do, and being sure and bold about your biblical principles, even when it comes to your business. So I know that one of the things that you say yes or no to is determination of the time, Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. But are there any other determining factors to saying yes or no when it comes to job demands?
Well, I mean, I think it comes down to a spiritual discernment sometimes. You know, you sit down with somebody and they may not, like, you know, we deal with investors, we deal with people who want to flip houses, you would deal with, you know, someone that wants to put in some kind of odd bids. You get calls from all over the country where they'll Google my name, and I've been thankful God's given me favor where I pop up to the top of a lot of searches on Yelp or Google or whatever. And, so they'll contact me before they may contact some other agents and just say, here's what I want to do. And if it doesn't sound right in my spirit, if something's not syncing up right, I will kind of have to put a little bit more of a filter on that before we just jump in and start doing things. So I would say I don't have a specific example more than just knowing that spirit. And the more time I spend with God in prayer and learning and reading the Bible, and kind of that, it kind of gives me more of that discernment. And that's like a scale of 1 to a billion, right? And I might be on level 3. So I'm not saying I'm some spiritual genius, but it's just I try to listen a little bit more every day to that voice, that still small voice. It may not be the sledgehammer against the side of the head. It might be more of like a whisper. And I'm like, okay. And, honestly, the times I've gone against my gut, my wife always says, Derek, isn't this one deal you said you had some concerns about? And here I am complaining at the dinner table about this client that has got all these crazy demands on me, and they want this, and then now they're going to cancel the deal. She's like, isn't that one of those deals you told me that you were kind of nervous about, or that you thought might not be a great? And she's sitting there reminding me, and I'm like, thanks, honey. You're right. And so she's like, you might as well cut bait now because this is going to be another 2 to 3 months like this. I'm like, you're right. So, but it's hard because as an entrepreneur, I feel like I'm the provider of the family, right? My wife doesn't have a job outside the home. She helps me with some of our businesses, but ultimately I feel like, okay, God, I got this. This is my thing. I'm going to go earn the money. I'm going to bring home the bacon, however you want to call it. But, God's really reminded me in the last 12 months, he's the provider. It's not me. Yeah. So all these efforts that I'm trying to make to provide for my family, he could snap his fingers in 1 second and either turn something on or turn something off. And he might say, now I just want you to focus on apps. Now I just want you to focus on real estate. Now I just want you to focus on whatever. I need to be willing to do that and not say, well, no, God, wait, I got this because I'm the provider here, because I am definitely not. He can humble me down as many notches as he needs to until I really get that, because I want to rely 100% on him and what he's allowed me to be able to provide for my family.
All right. I love it. I love that you have that that provider spirit, because teaching in today's world, when we have so many distractions, your children are watching, and it's wonderful, the model that you're showing them, that you do get up every day and you do what you do, and your wife does what she does, and keeping that balance. Which is something that I want to ask you in the last few minutes here, and that is, are there any particular practices that you do on a daily basis when it comes to faith, or when it comes to just making sure that there's a sense of balance? But do you other than, of course, people get up and say, okay, brush your teeth, comb your hair, get dressed. Is there any type of routine to what you do to make sure that you're staying balanced?
Yeah, I would say, first of all, and I've tried to learn to delegate things. So to be honest with you, I could earn a lot more money in my real estate career if I tried to do more things myself in some ways. Like, it'd be more temporary money, right? Like, if I didn't have an assistant, I didn't have someone that was our office manager running this, and if I didn't, have agents that are willing to run with buyers on the evenings and weekends, if I tried to do all that myself, now I could work 80 hours a week, but I could probably double my income. But then I would not be – I'm almost home for dinner every single night of the week, and that's in my business. That's almost impossible. And I've been doing this for 13 years, and I set that as an early priority. I said, you know what, I want to be home by at least 6 o'clock at night for my kids and get to go to all their sports games and all the practices that I could go to, and just be present in the family, because no matter how much money I made, it's all irrelevant if it's just going to be burned up someday anyway. So that one practical thing was just trying to be home for dinner every night. And then the second thing is trying to block my weekends for personal time instead of business time, because it's easy in the real estate business to do open houses on Sundays, to go on listing appointments on Saturday. Now, I still occasionally will do those things. I'm not saying it's almost impossible to completely not do that, but I try to do it on such a limited basis that it's more of an exception to the rule than the rule. And by delegating out and sharing the profits of my business with other people, I've really been able to honor those commitments I've made to my family.
Well, Derek, thank you so much for being here on the show with us today. I think you have really enlightened and inspired and empowered someone today that just says, yeah, he did it. I can do it too. Let's go forward. Thank you so much for sharing today.
I really appreciate the opportunity, and it's always an honor to hang out with you.
Thank you so much, listeners. I thank you for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I will see you back next week, people, and enjoy your week. Continue to be awesome and be blessed in the Lord. Until next time, bye-bye.